Hey everyone, and welcome. I am so excited because I have something very special for you today. I am bringing on two of my actual really good friends, Amanda Rassam and Roberto Martinez, who call themselves the Conscious Couple. They are love and intimacy coaches, and they are here to talk with us today about what it really takes to maintain and cultivate a long, sustainable intimacy and relationship with a partner. So I just want to say welcome both of you to this podcast, to this live video streaming. It's so good to have you guys here.
Thanks for inviting us. This is going to be really fun.
Thank you. That was a beautiful introduction.
So I just want to just dive right into it. What really inspired you guys to do the work that you do?
Well, perhaps I'll start. So for me, my relationship history was treacherous and it was embarrassing and it was exhausting. And I often found myself really wanting more from my partners and finding that I was almost in this, oh man, I don't like to put it this way, but for lack of better kind of verbiage, like almost like it wasn't like I was their partner, it was like I was their nag or like their mom, and feeling like I couldn't really like level up to them. And it felt like there was always this either power imbalance or, finding that my partners were ultimately not meeting me where I needed to be. And that was also my own doing. And it wasn't until I realized the ways that I contributed to my past relationships that I didn't know that I was attracting the same patterns over and over and over. And so when I started doing the work, I started to doubt that I could ever really even find someone who was willing to do the work alongside me. And I actually feared that I was not going to be able to find someone who could take what I needed as seriously as I did. And so I went on a massive journey to take care of me first, as you know, how important that is. And as soon as I started to do that, I actually attracted in so many people that were doing the same, including my partner, Roberto. And he happened to be doing the exact kind of same work around the same time, had very similar, awakenings. And it just so happened that we were kind of always in front of each other, but never really available. And then when we were both finally putting the work in on ourselves, it was kind of like, oh, hey, like this is actually possible. So yeah. And that led me to ultimately doing the work that I do now, which is to help women and couples to find that love for themselves and find that love within their partnerships, and to believe that that's capable for them as well. Because if you knew me a couple of years ago, you might even find it kind of funny to see me where I am now, because my relationship history was not exactly squeaky clean. There was a lot of drama, trauma, and chaos. And I think that ultimately we sometimes go through that pain, but on the other side of that pain is our purpose. And this ended up being very purposeful for me. And so I figured, why not share that message and make it purposeful?
Yeah. So for me, I have a little bit of a different story where I was actually in a long-term relationship where I actually had a kid with someone. We got married. And on the outside, it seemed like we had this like fairy tale relationship. We seemed so happy. We had the home. I had the job that I was passionate about. And yet I was terrified to actually express my real needs and desires to my partner, right? Because I had adopted this strategy from when I was young that when I share my vulnerable self with the people closest to me, it meant abandonment. So there was like no way in hell I was ever going to risk sharing my heart, my truest self with someone. So everything I did was through the lens of how I thought I would be most accepted. So, and like, let's be honest, that doesn't make for the most intimate or authentic relationship, right? It seemed like it was. And you know what, like, to be truthful, in some aspects, it definitely was. It was real, it was beautiful, there was depth to it. Yet, because there was this big part of myself that I was hiding from my partner, because ultimately I was just ashamed of it myself, right? Like I didn't accept it. So because I didn't accept it, how could she accept it? So why would I ever risk sharing that with her? And because I never shared that with her, it led to a ton of infidelity where like I was cheating and eventually it got to a point where I could no longer not live in integrity. And I decided to just come clean one day. And that led to the destruction of that relationship. And that led to, honestly, like a tremendous amount of pain. And in my mind, like I was responsible for the death of my family, right? Like that sucked. And there was so much shame attached to that and guilt attached to that. And then it got to a point where when her and I split up, I was in this mode of like, oh my God, like I need to date as many people as possible. And I need to like fill the hole in my heart because I'm in so much pain. And eventually, I remember bawling my eyes out because I felt that no one wanted me. And I just looked in the mirror and I'm like, bro, like you gotta stop looking outside of yourself and you need to start giving yourself the love that you're seeking so desperately. So I just took a pause on dating and I'm like, I'm going to make it my practice and my obsession to love myself and to show myself love. And then lo and behold, as soon as I did that, that made room and space for me to notice the beautiful gift that had literally been in front of me this entire time. Right. And to kind of touch back to what you were talking about, and for the people who are maybe watching this, who've been like looking for that partner, they're just looking for the one, like, homie, you're never going to find the one unless you recognize that you yourself are the one. Like you're the one that you've been looking for, and you just got to fall madly deep in love with the person looking in the mirror. That's the only way to truly find the one. And then just like as our relationship has evolved and we both started, our coaching practice, like now I help really good men become great. Like what are the things that are holding them back from accomplishing all the amazing things that they want in life? And that's my mission. And then because we have such beautiful mirrored missions, we decided, why don't we take what we're doing and do it together to help couples experience the loving, passionate, thriving relationship that we all crave.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh, I love that. And it's so fitting that you call yourself the conscious couple, because everything that you both have shared here just comes with such an awareness and such a true grounded sense of just presence and recognition and just ownership of like, yeah, this is who I am. This is who I was. There are parts of me that were ugly, but I own those pieces. I love those pieces of myself, and it made me who I am today. And I think that's a huge part of loving ourselves, right? Is owning the fact that we are not perfect and that we can accept those pieces within ourselves and make space for other people to love and appreciate those things about us as well. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well
Yes.
said.
So I want to just God, there's so many beautiful ways we could take this conversation. You could just drop so many beautiful nuggets. I want to double down on what Amanda was talking about in terms of really making space for another person who was ready to do quote unquote the work, right, on themselves. Yeah. Because I think that that's something that I notice and I hear from my ladies is they want to do the work, but they're afraid that there aren't men out there that want to do the work, or they're afraid that they're going to get stuck into a relationship that maybe they will outgrow, or feel worried that, their partner may stop growing and they're going to keep growing, and what happens at that point. So I'd love to hear just kind of your guys' thoughts on that in terms of really stepping into what I like to call an evolved and spiritual partnership for the long haul.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that was a major fear of mine. And, I think that sometimes we can get wrapped up in the potentials of someone rather than the realities of what are being shown. So, I had many partners actually that were conscious and that were doing the work, but the work that they were doing, I had to acknowledge was their own path. And I couldn't interject myself along that path. There were partners that I was dating that they were completely not on this conscious path, not interested in the work. And that for me was quite obvious. It was okay, that relationship's really not going to work for me because there's a clear difference in values. What became a challenge was when I was dating someone who was doing the work, but finding that our work was going in different directions. And I was trying desperately to cling on to their work and hope that we could grow in the same direction. And there's, again, potential that those paths could have changed again, but it was acknowledging within that moment, what is it that I really need for me? Not what is it that I want for my future? based on hopes and dreams. Because I think that when we are undoing the patterns of the past, the things that we've been stuck in the past, sometimes we can be like, oh, I'm actually done with that pattern. I don't do that anymore. And then it shows up in a different way and you're like, oh crap, like actually that pattern just kind of shape shifted into something else. And if I don't acknowledge it in this other form, I'm going to find myself susceptible to falling back into that pattern. And for me, that pattern was putting my partner's needs over my own, and not going forward in, some of the greater risks, the greater calculated risks in my life, because I was afraid of, again, like you said, like overshooting their growth and going, I want to travel. I want to take this training. I want to go and start this business, with a fear that if I go do that thing, that could very well change the relationship completely. And that just became a vow, a devotion that I made to myself, that no matter what was happening with my partner, I had to still honor those commitments to myself. And that there were also, on the flip side of the same coin, ways to do that while still honoring my partnership. So it is such a fine balance, and it's such a process and a practice, and super context dependent. It's always going to change based on the day, the weather, like how we're feeling. Because especially right now, so much is changing so fast. And so that's been my experience with that.
I would love to
Yeah.
follow up with Roberto too, to add on to this, because, I think maybe there is a little bit of a fear or a doubt for women that there aren't that many conscious men out there, or aren't men that are willing to want to do their own growth and self-development and keep growing. Like, what would you say to that? Saying that you work with good men, making them great. Are they out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that the story of there are no good men out there that are willing to do the work is bullshit, because I know so many men that are willing to do the work. I know so many men that literally tell themselves the same story of, I just wish I could find a woman out there who just wants to do the work alongside me. And I know that because that was also me. Like, for a long time in all my past relationships, I literally felt like the person I was with, it was like, I hate using this term, but it really felt like a ball and chain, that I would constantly, I'm trying to sprint and I'm like, let's change the world. Like, let's literally make this world better. Come on. Like, and I see this amazing greatness in the people I'm surrounded with, but because my partners didn't see their own greatness, they limited themselves. And by limiting yourself, and by believing the stories that limit yourself, and by the fact that I was with them in a relationship, it was hindering me. And I was allowing their limiting beliefs to hold me back because I was so afraid of being alone. So yeah, like, there's so many good men out there. Like, for the people that are watching, for the women that are watching, oh my gosh, like the guy that you're looking for, like, he's looking for you. Like, he's doing the work, like, just hoping that you magically appear. You just need to keep doing the work and trust and know that that person is out there. Because I find, for me, like, my past was different. Like, I wasn't ever like, praying and just being like, oh my God, like, I'm just looking for that partner. I've just always known that my queen, my goddess of a partner is there. That when I'm ready and when she's ready, we're going to be together. That was never a doubt of mine. So I never actively worried about that. And because that's my belief, guess what? I get to be right. Because you don't always get what you want, but you will always get what you believe. And although we don't always choose our beliefs, you can begin to choose new beliefs that are empowering. And to touch back on something you had said, babe, where you were like, what was the exact wording you used? I'm going to paraphrase, where you said that you were almost like holding yourself back from like stepping into a dream for fear of how the relationship would change. Like I'm of the belief that if there's something that's on her heart, no matter how scary it is, if that's like truly her truth, then she has to pursue it. And it's only going to make me a better man, right? Regardless, because my truth, even if it's truly from an empowered place, me doing something that I know on my heart I need to do, and if it's for my best, I know it's going to be for her best, and it's going to be for the best of the relationship. And I'm also saying that because that's also my choice to believe that. And in that belief, I find what's really empowering is we're always pushing each other to do the thing that's on our heart, no matter how scary it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we all want in a relationship, right? To know that your partner is like shouting from the rooftops saying, go after your dreams because you got this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So beautiful. So beautiful. 100%. 100%. Oh my gosh. It's the best feeling. So
Yeah.
I want to ask then, so for those ladies that are in relationships already and they're questioning and wondering if their partner is able to be that person for them, like, what do you notice if people are finding themselves kind of getting into a stagnation, or just things are getting a little blah and like the fire is dwindling a bit? Like, what do you really suggest to be able to kind of reignite that, and also kind of like start to spark up this, like, let's grow together, let's really challenge and push each other?
So fitting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to jump in to this one.
Go for it.
So one of the things we actually talk about with our students is we really relate relationships to like building a fire, right? Like you don't accidentally build a magnificent fire. You do it with a really specific process, right? Like you have a plan. And I think to touch up on what you said, like when the fire is kind of dwindling, like what do you do? And I think the first thing you do is you actively build the fire with intention, right? Because like I know for us, like we're so passionate about what we do. There's been times where like if we don't schedule times to be intimate,
It
right?
happens.
Yeah.
It happens to us too.
That's right. Like if we don't, because we're so passionate about what we do, like we'll fill in the time and the space in our days with our work because we love what we do so much. But if we don't schedule time to be intimate together, and intimacy isn't just about sex, like intimacy is also about times to connect and talk and massage each other and play and have fun. If we don't schedule those times, then they sometimes don't happen. And I know that we've had conversations where I'm like, babe, like we need to make time to just hang out. Like, let me massage you tonight, or let's talk, or let's do whatever. Like we put intention into our time to rekindle that fire.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
100%. Oh, yes. So yeah, let's talk about intimacy and like all the different ways that we can really create intimacy within a partnership. What does that look like? We can definitely talk about sex, but what are some, first off, so what are some of the other things besides sex to really create that heart-to-heart connection?
Yeah, for sure. I love intimacy. It's my jam. Intimacy to me is, I define it a little bit differently than probably most people. Because, you know, intimacy is not for the faint of heart. It's not for those who want the surface stuff. It's for those who really want to go deep and feel and be embodied and experience. And so the same way that Teal, you had said, you know, again, paraphrasing here, but like as leaders in this space, we have not completely rejected all of our like shadow, all of our ugliness. We've accepted it and learned to hold it and be like, this is a reality of what's here. I think that true intimacy is not about self-validating, or not about validating each other. It's not about, you know, I'm intimate with you, so I'm going to love you and accept you and never reject you, and you're perfect. And now you can know you'll never be abandoned. That's intimacy. No, that's not intimacy to me. And presumably to us. Intimacy from our lens is that more important than anything else is that you see who I am, and that you can respect me as I am, and that you can hopefully accept me as I am. And I think that acceptance is a defining as, you know, you may not like me, but at least you know me. And with intimacy, I think there's going to be times in a partnership when there's conflict, when there's disagreement, when there's emotion, where you're going to not be your perfect little self, and you're not going to be your perfect girl next door. You're not going to be the knight that sweeps her off her feet. Like, you're going to be a human fucking being, and you're going to need to show up, and you're going to need to be held, and you're going to need to be like, this is who I am right now. And I think that if you can both meet with that intention of, we're holding the space for this fire, like we're creating kind of like our fire pit, not letting everything like, you know, catch all the trees around us on fire, and not letting it also completely burn out here, but we're creating a boundary for us to experience this fire. And we're creating a boundary of this intimacy. And often with us, like we often ask each other, what is it you need right now? Do you need me to just hold space for this? Are you looking for support? Are you looking for advice? Like, do you need me to hold you? Do you want me to give you some space? It's really assessing the needs of each other so that we can feel seen. And intimacy to me is that there's a way that people phrase it is like, into me you see. And it's really important to me that I'm like, I would rather you know all of me, honestly. And I think that there's a way to do that that comes from a heart-centered place. And that's what makes intimacy safe, is that it's not about projecting your stuff on someone and be like, well, this is who I am, so deal with it. It's about going, I want to show you the most vulnerable part of my heart. And that might not look super pretty, but I'm going to fully accept that it's mine. And I'm hoping you can bear witness to it. That to me is intimacy.
Wow. Wow. So beautiful. So powerful. I love that, into me you see.
Yeah.
Really, really beautiful. Yeah. Roberta, did you have other things you wanted to add to that?
The only thing I want to add, two things. I love you. You're incredible. And number two, yeah, like the only way to truly, I think, share your heart with someone in that vulnerable way, as Amanda explained, is you got to accept yourself first and foremost, right? Like I think that's like really step one. Because you can't share yourself so vulnerably to me if you haven't truly accepted yourself. Just like how, like, I didn't share myself intimately with my past partners because I was afraid, because I had rejected that part of myself.
Right.
So if I rejected that part of myself, then I assume that you're going to reject it too. So the only way to have true intimacy, I believe, one of the key factors is a self-acceptance first, or at least a willing to accept yourself, a willingness to accept myself. And then there's the vulnerability of actually sharing your heart and respecting and treating the gift that is your expression like the beautiful gift that it is. Right.
Yeah. It is such a practice too.
It is a practice. It is a practice. And something I always share too, just to kind of like remind and reassure people that are kind of new to vulnerability and to intimacy, is that, it's not that you are just ripping out your heart and saying, here's my heart, please don't break it. I'm giving you my heart away. It's about strengthening your heart, accepting your heart, knowing that you are going to be okay no matter what. And you are still willing, from that place of strength, not from weakness, but from a place of strength, to open up your heart and let it be seen, rather than being ripped out to be given, right? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. There's the word courageous. I always think of the word courageous because like the word cœur, like heart in French, is the center of the word courageous. You need to have heart to be courageous. And I know for you, Teal, you work with women to really bring them out of their head and into their heart, and how important that is to really live from that place, because it really is a place of vulnerability, intimacy, courage, truth, alignment, integrity. I think that we all really crave to live from a heart-centered place. And that actually, I think, is a big reason why we crave romantic connections, because it helps us to tap in to our center, which is that we are loving beings. We are people that want to pair bond. We're people that want to experience connection and deep community. And we want to feel like we belong. We want to feel like we're seen, like we're accepted, understood. And that comes with also doing all that work for yourself, on yourself. So yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Absolutely.
So beautiful. So for, my ladies, I'm just thinking about them. What if they feel like they're not seen and heard by their partner? What do they do in that space? Or maybe they've been in a partnership for a long time, maybe they're married or really committed, they're not going anywhere, but they feel like they're not really seen and held in the ways that they want. They don't feel safe within the relationship. Yeah.
Wow, that is such a huge question, because the first thing, I have so many follow-up questions to that. It so depends, because I think that the easy answer is to say, well, you need to see yourself and then you'll accept yourself. And it's like, yes, there's absolute validity in that. And I'm very curious to know, like, what evidence do they have that they don't feel seen? Because I think that sometimes one of the greatest misconceptions in communication is that just because I say something, I presume you've understood it.
That's right.
So, this is where like love languages come in, where it's like, I can show you all the love in the world the way that I know it, but if you don't receive it that way, you're like, this person doesn't care at all. And it's like, what do you mean? I've done all this for you. So, I think that there's many, many answers to this question. But the first being just like, what is that evidence for you? Because what would be your evidence procedure? What would be your guarantee that if these conditions were met on this list, that's how I know I'd be seen? And it can be something as simple as being like, for someone just to go, I see you.
Mm-hmm.
Or for someone to, put away their distractions while they're with you, or for someone to communicate their feelings back. Like, I don't know what each person's individual needs are. That's ultimately for you to discover. And what a beautiful thing to discover is how you feel best seen. That's my go-to right now. What about you, hun?
Yeah, and I love the way you answered that, because it's all context dependent, right? And so without any more context than that, the first thing I would touch up on with this person is I would talk concept we teach our students called perception is projection, which essentially means that whatever is going on within me internally, I project onto my circumstance outside of me. So the perfect example of this is I was working with a student who came into a session and they were telling me about how they were wearing these pink shoes, and their coworker said, "Hey, Julie, those are pink shoes," right? And like, that statement, let's be honest, is incredibly neutral, right? Like, we would hear that and be like, oh, okay, cool. Like, those are pink shoes, whatever. But when Julie came into my session, she's like, Roberto, that was like a dagger in my gut. And I'm like, what the heck, Julie, what are you talking about? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, what is it that you heard? And she's like, well, she was saying that me wearing those shoes was stupid. That was a stupid idea. Right? And then it clicked, and I'm like, okay, Julie, when did you decide that you're stupid? And at first she was like, I don't know what you're talking about, Roberto. And I said, no, let's sit with that for a second. When did you decide that you're stupid? And then all of a sudden, just like waterworks, she's just bawling her eyes out, right? Because Julie had a belief that she's stupid. So her friend saying something as neutral as your shoes are pink validated the belief of I'm stupid. That's what she heard. She heard that situation through that belief. And so if someone doesn't feel seen, then yeah, the first thing I think that's really important is to recognize, okay, well, what role are you playing in not being seen? Because one, you need to take responsibility over your role in that, because you are playing a role in it, right? It doesn't mean it's your fault that you're in a relationship that's abusive and the person literally may ignore you purposely. Sure, that's not your fault, but you are playing a role in it by participating in it, right? So what role are you playing? How can you take responsibility?
Are you like, do you not want to be visible? Like, do you want to hide? Are you used to being the person that needs to hide? Or is that a way that you witnessed a pattern in your past where the people that you modeled your relationships after used to hide to get attention, to then feel seen? Like, it's like, there's so many. This is where like we love to just go deep into the beliefs and be like, what is really here? Like, what is this really about? Because we know that it's not about presenting problem. It's not about like the peepees, as we call them. It's not about those presenting problems. It's about what's deeper. So yeah. Did you have anything else you want to add? I got excited with you.
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. Take responsibility. What role are you playing, and how are you projecting what's going on internally onto that situation?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. So good. So good. Yes. So I want to pivot a little bit and go back to intimacy. So obviously openness, having those deep heart-to-heart connections, the vulnerable, intimate, openness of feeling seen, feeling communicated. That's a beautiful way to create intimacy. Let's talk about sex and making love and creating intimacy through this beautiful, beautiful union of our bodies coming together. Talk to me a little bit more about, how you really encourage couples to create intimacy through sex.
Encourage intimacy through sex. Well, I think first and foremost, communication. Like, you gotta actually talk about what it is you like and don't like, right? Which is, I know for me personally, that used to be something I was terrified of talking about, right? Because I remember I would make love with my partners, and it would be like this thing where we would never really ever talk about it. And something that Amanda and I practice is like, we'll make love, and then I'll actually ask her, hey, what did you like about that? Tell me, what do you want more of and what do you want less of? Right? Because I was so afraid of hearing the less of question, because if there was anything you wanted me to do less of, then that meant my manhood was in jeopardy. Now I'm just like, yo, I just want to get better at this.
Yo, let's talk about that though. Let's talk about the relationship between our worth and our sexual performance, and how that hinders intimacy, and how that hinders people really showing up vulnerably and completely raw and naked, because someone's up here thinking about what is it that I'm supposed to do? What is the next move, versus actually being embodied, being in the experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that was me, what she just described. That was me for a long time. Right. And I think a lot of men struggle with this, right? Is like, men they pride themselves in their ability to satisfy their woman. But let's be honest, like a woman's sexual appetite is kind of insatiable. And I say that from a place of respect and love. Like it's so powerful, right? It's such a powerful energy. And for me to like put that responsibility on me, like, come on, man, chill out. Like I get the gift of being able to participate in the journey of sex with my partner. I don't get the credit for the destination, right? Like I'm not the one doing it. I'm helping her get herself there herself,
Well, yes. And we also are like, we're participating in that together, because I think it can be a lot of pressure that each partner can put on themselves. And something to effect that you said is like, a woman's sexual appetite is so expansive. It's kind of like trying to take this like beautiful wild garden that you're like witnessing. You're like, wow, that's so gorgeous. I'm going to cut all that up and put it in a vase on my kitchen table. And it's like, that does not allow that wild to grow. Like that garden wants to flourish. That garden wants to expand. It wants to creep everywhere. Like and not to say that every woman, wants to be, having experiences with their partners or anything. But rather that, there are so many layers to desire, and it is perfectly acceptable, normal, and okay that we are not all this like linear one-dimensional being where it's like, do this, orgasm, done. Now let's like,
that's right.
For done, So I think that when it comes to, you were talking about communication, very, very important. One thing that I've found tremendously powerful for me has been becoming more embodied in my experience. And in a way, it's almost like, and feel free to reject this or feel free to correct me here, but I feel like almost like our situation's almost reversed, where I used to put my partner's pleasure at the paramount of everything else, to my own detriment and pretty much the abuse of my body. Like I'd be like in pain, or I would be like going against my own boundaries or whatever, to satisfy you, and like not you, but to satisfy a man and his needs. When I started to go, my needs are equally important, and my pleasure is a privilege that you get to share. It is not yours to have. It is something that I experience, and you bear witness to it. You get to be in the vicinity of it, because I can go experience that myself. It is not yours. It's not for you. We had this conversation. I was like, my pleasure is not for you. It's for me. And that when I took that ownership, like you literally were like, okay, whatever you want. Like it literally just shifted and like immediately. And that was also a state of being. Like it wasn't just about saying it. It was owning it energetically. Like I was just like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I need to know that I'm being taken care of and that I'm being worshiped, and that as a result, like I want to devour and worship you, but that it's not this like bargaining for sex, discovering my worth in sex, like using sex as a power play, using sex as a manipulation, which was my old stories around sex. All of my worth that was tied up in sex was around, can I basically show up and do whatever it is you want to be a good girl? No, thank you. Not interested anymore.
Sometimes.
Babe. Anyways.
These are hilarious and so freaking adorable. And I can only imagine like ladies listening are just like, this is incredible. And how do I find a man like Roberto?
Yeah, he's a pretty special guy. And I find that, you know, you have such a way with words, you have such a way with being vulnerable and showing up just so authentically. And that's made it so easy to be so vulnerable with him, is that I think that men can sometimes fear showing up so vulnerably because they shield their heart and they fear like being laughed at, or like being, you know, rejected. And it's like they absolutely need to see grounded divine men holding a divine masculine energy for women to be like, you're safe to be here. You're safe to experience yourself. It's not a measure of me. It's not an attack on me. You are just you. You're just your expansive wild garden. And I'm just a beautiful observer taking a walk, like, and being able to be here while you're flourishing. And I think that in our relationship, what's made it so successful sexually is that you are like, it is my duty to worship. And I'm like, okay, I'm down for that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think part of that too is to make sure that you're both in the belief, like in this holding the same value that is what you want, right? And be able to communicate that is what you want.
Yes.
Right? Because if one person believes that, like, you got to worship me, and the other one's like, no, I'm not going to worship you. Like, who do you think you are? That's going to cause some friction, right?
Totally. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
where does that place of worship come from where there's no ego attached to it?
Yeah. That like, I find what you just described kind of took time to get to a point where that was always the case, because there was this unconscious thing running in my background where like there were moments in our relationship where I was worshiping and giving to get, right? And like, that's not fun. That's not generous. That's insanely manipulative, right? Like, and that's not cool. And a lot of men do that, right? Where it's like, maybe I'll do the dishes tonight and take care of the kids and hope that I'll get some, right? Like, or just do those things because you want to be the loving partner and you want to help your partner out, right? And just lighten the load. And if you guys have amazing sex, great. If not, then you at least gave her the gift of making life easier for her. And that distinction has been so powerful for us, where it's like, when I'm giving to her, like, I just want to give just for the sake of giving. And I don't care if it leads to sex, if it doesn't lead to sex, like what is sex? It's making love, right? And we make love without even having sex, right?
Yeah,
we don't need
like being around each other and sharing each other intimately. Yeah.
That's right. And I think that one of the biggest keys that we do really well, like when I think of what sex is, it's one of the rawest forms of expression that we have and that we can share with anybody. So that, like, let's take it outside of the bedroom for a moment. Like, when I'm expressing myself to you, like if I'm being vulnerable and I'm sharing my heart and I'm sharing something with you that's really scary for me and you accept it, that makes it so much easier to share my sexual self with you, and vice versa, right? When you come to me and you're like, yo, babe, like, I got to share something with you. Like, this isn't going to be easy to hear. You might not even like this, but like, I'm trusting you to treat what I'm about to share with you with respect, with dignity, with love. And we've had many like tough conversations, right? Where like I've shared something that wouldn't be so easy to hear. And she's shared stuff with me that I'm like, okay, like, let me really sit with that for a moment. However, the thing that we've always done is we've always spoken with respect. So if I'm sharing something that she might not like, I'm sharing it through the lens of, I respect you, I love you, and I need to share this because it's the right thing for me. And if it's the right thing for me, it's the right thing for us. And then even if it's heavy for her to hear, she receives it through the lens of, he respects me and he loves me. Like, I know his intentions are only from that lens. So it may be challenging to hear, but we're choosing to go through that heaviness together. We're choosing to honor each other's expression each time. And because we've done that so successfully so many times, and we're not perfect at it, not by any means, but because we've done it so well so many times, it makes opening up and sharing our most vulnerable selves in the bedroom so much easier and more fun. Because the best sex that we've all had is completely unhindered, and unhindered in the context of safety, right? Like, I know that I can just be myself, right? I can be myself totally openly. And the reason why I know that is because I've been myself, and I know that me being myself is safe with you, right? So I think that's one of the biggest keys to having amazing sex.
Yeah, safety is not just about physical. Safety is emotional. And if you don't feel like you can honestly be yourself or express yourself with your partner, even if they say to you, like, you can tell me and I won't be upset, and then their body language is like, I am not okay with this, you are unconsciously deciding that when I opened up, you still went back on that intention, and you are upset now. And I think sometimes that's not possible to always manage. Like, sometimes we can just experience emotions and not expect them. But when it comes to worship and how to get to that place of devotion, for me, I think that there is I've always had such a beautiful, like, relationship with sex as an experience of expression, and knowing that it is it's such an embodied act that, there is no separation between the physical and spiritual to me. And that wasn't always the case, but in recent years, I kind of came to the understanding of just how magnificent and interconnected and amazing our bodies are. And in really honoring and devoting myself to my own body and to my own love for myself, I started to really just notice, like, how you could almost get into trance in sex, to the point where, like, syncing your breathing with someone, or like being so embodied in all of your senses, like, you can just get completely lost in sex. And I think that when sex is really good, it's like time stops and you're in complete flow. And that's where that worship comes in. And I think that worship is more of an energy than a thing. It's more of a state of being, and it's more of a state of appreciation and gratitude and flow with every single present moment, which is ultimately tantra, is the tantra of life, is this interconnectedness with everything as it's being experienced now.
Oh my God, you guys are on fire. I could literally talk to you forever. That was so beautiful. So beautiful. And it's, once again, it's getting out of the ego, out of the mind around worship, and into the heart, into the flow, into the feeling and the presence of worship, and the energetics of just connection. Wow. So beautiful. So beautiful. And it's killing me. I can't believe we've already been talking for like 45 minutes. And
oh my God.
I know we're going to have to wrap it up for today, but I would love to have you guys on again, and we can just continue to dive into these concepts. But this has just been so incredibly valuable to hear everything you've been sharing. And just, I know my listeners and my viewers are going to just absolutely love this. So thank you both so much for being here. And I hear that you have a special free training that you guys are bringing forth. I would love for you to share that, and we can add the links to it for anyone that's interested in kind of learning and exploring more and working with you guys potentially.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's a free masterclass that we're launching this Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And ultimately, it's about building the most important relationship so it can last, right? And how we're doing that is we're teaching, again, we're really loving this fire, building a fire metaphor. And we believe that in order to build a fire that lasts, that nurtures, a fire that doesn't go out, a fire that you actually want to gather around, there are 6 main necessities that have to be in place in order to build that fire. And so we're going to teach everyone who comes onto the masterclass what those 6 necessities are. So we'll share the link with you, and we're really, really excited about it. It's going to be quite powerful.
Yes.
Amazing. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Can I come on too? Even though the fire's going strong, but I want to learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
incredible. That's incredible. And if people want to find you and follow you, I will put the links to your Instagrams and your Facebooks and all of that, all the good things down below in the show notes. And just thank you both so much for just coming on here and being so real and so present and so vulnerable. You are truly speaking and walking your talk and living in your presence. And that's just, it's so beautiful to witness. And we just need to see more and more people show up in this way. So thank you for doing the work that you do.
Oh, thank you so much for having us, Teal. It truly has been such a pleasure. And like anytime that you want us back, I'm speaking on behalf of both of us.
Oh, hell yeah.
All right, lovelies. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.